It's not hyperbolic to say that this show is the type of Star Wars that I've been waiting for since Disney bought it. Because this show, more than anything else with the Star Wars label on it, since Disney bought it, has the markings of George Lucas's methodology. He gave us this fantastical world. He introduced us to the world, to these characters, and to the rules and how everything worked. And then when he did the prequel trilogy, what did he do? He expanded on that. He gave us something different. He gave us more lore, deepening the mythology, and a larger context and understanding of how the universe works. And this show follows that same trend. It expands the lore, it deepens the mythology, and it gives us intense lightsaber fights. Because the moment that he impaled that Jedi and then used the Force to bring the other Jedi and impale him too, and just shish kebab 2 Jedi in one go, I was like, oh, a Sith fights differently, and these High Republic Jedi are not equipped for this style of combat. And it was so entertaining that I wasn't even detracted from the most predictable reveal in television. We got that reveal out the way halfway through the season, so there's going to be more reveals to come that are hopefully more fulfilling and more satisfying. But at the same time, while I was enjoying this episode, while I was thoroughly having fun with this episode was not perfect. It was not hitting on all cylinders at all times. Because even though I enjoyed him as a Sith and the reveal of him as a Sith and the way he acted and the way he was talking, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Him getting carried away by them bugs seemed like, oh, we switched to like a Rebels Clone Wars episode. Like we just switched to like a cartoon real quick. Like it was so comical almost. I felt like it did not fit the tone of what we had been watching thus far. It was funny because it reminded me of the ant stampede overtaking Kang in Ant-Man Quantumania. It was like this menacing supervillain and bugs. Just they don't coexist. To me, the biggest issue with this show is the tone. The tone to me isn't consistent because sometimes we feel like we're in a dark, gritty, dark side focusing show, and other times I feel like we're in a Star Wars cartoon. And so the tone of the show isn't as consistent as a Mandalorian or an Andor to me. But to me, that's the biggest deficit of the show. The pluses and the positives do outweigh that for me so far. And another thing that I wasn't totally sold on was the meeting, the reunion of May and Osha. Because, and this might be something I change my mind on as the rest of the episodes come out and we get a fuller context. But the way they talk to each other seems like the thing that happens in TV shows where characters just don't say what they need to in the time to really convey what they're talking about. Because I don't think that May started that fire because we don't actually see her. We see her burn the book. We don't see her start the fire. And so I think when the full context of what happened that night comes out, we'll learn that she doesn't start the fire. And if that's true, then the fact that she doesn't say that here when she's talking to her sister and her sister accuses her of killing everybody, she has no defense. It's like, she's like, yeah, I did that. And it was necessary. And so if it comes out that that didn't happen and something else was going on as what's been alluded to this whole season, then this conversation will retroactively make less sense. Because the conversation seemed very stilted and it seemed like two sisters who hadn't seen each other since that night would have more to say to each other. And if May really wanted Osha to understand her point and her point of view and why she went down this path, it seemed like she would say more. And one last thing is that are we now to believe that the Sith we met and that we've been looking at this whole time is the master and he's looking for an apprentice? But if he's the master, then I wonder how that changes how we look at the show and how we anticipate what's coming in the show. And I'm not saying that he is. They didn't definitively say that in this episode, but the way he was like, I'm a Sith and I'm looking for an acolyte, it just, the implication was that he didn't have a master. And, you know, Sith are all about deception, and there would be no point in him divulging that information if he did have a master. So I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying that based on how everybody was talking in this episode, I was like, maybe? And if he is, I don't know how that makes me feel. Because now, who is it? Is he somebody that we should know in the line of Sith, like Plagueis Tenebrous Sidious. If he's Plagueis or Tenebrous, then they've changed the species of the character, which is just another thing that's going to make people upset. But and he definitely can't be Sidious, because I think Sidious's age is canonical. I think there's no way he was alive during his time and not that old. But at the end of the day, with this episode, they are doing some interesting things with the Star Wars lore. But outside of that, it's a good show. I'm enjoying it. What do you think? What did you think of this episode? And how did it affect your enjoyment or outlook on the season so far and your anticipation of the rest of the season? Let me know and we can get into it. And I'll catch you guys next time.